Welcome to a brand new episode of the Story of My Pet podcast. I am your host, Julie Marty Pearson, and I am super excited to bring you this new episode. Thank you so much for being here and supporting the podcast. I hope you enjoyed. Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Story of My Pet. Leah, I am so happy to have you here. Welcome to the Story of My Pet.
Oh, it's so great to be here, Julie.
Leah and I connected through PodMatch, which I have mentioned before, but it is a great program. It's something that you sign up for and put your info in, and then you get matched. Guests and hosts get matched to be on podcasts. And I use it myself to be guests on others, but I also use it to find guests for my show. So that is how Leah and I connected. So I'm super excited to meet you and get to know you better. I always like to start with, have you always been an animal lover? Did you grow up with pets?
Absolutely. So when I was young, probably 3, 4, 5, my parents actually raised greyhounds. I remember being 4 years old and seeing a greyhound give birth, and it was just magical. From the time I could walk, we had always had dogs. There would sometimes be a gap of maybe a year or two where we would have a grieving process and then we would get another dog. We always tended to adopt unicorns, which if your listeners are not aware, a unicorn is a dog who, for one reason or another, has to be the only dog in the house. When I was 7, we adopted a dog whose name was Dixie, and we adopted her when she was 9 months old and had her until she was 18. When we met her, she was just crouched in the corner of the shelter. She had already been returned twice because people adopted her thinking she was cute and didn't realize she was a puppy and had puppy tendencies. Thankfully, my parents were very patient with her. Her whole life, she was just the sweetest of humans, but she was imprinted on with just an intolerance to other dogs. She was scared by them. She was not aggressive, but she just could not be around other dogs. She could not be in a kennel. We went on road trips with her. She went on all of our family vacations, which I think is one of the reasons that her death really hit me hard, because it was like losing a member of the family. By the time she had passed, I had started my career and I was in a very demanding job, but always knew that I wanted to have a dog of my own. And so after many years of navigating nonprofit leadership, I told my husband when I turned 40, I said that I didn't need a present, but I needed to have a dog. It was non-negotiable. We adopted my dog, Layla, who, unbeknownst to me, is also a bit of a unicorn. She's an aggressive female, but
They seem to find the right people in you, though, it sounds
she's
like.
the loveliest dog. She is a neighborhood favorite. She has 3 or 4 aunts in the neighborhood who we have to go by their house every single day so they can love on her.
I love that.
And she even has dog friends in the neighborhood, but she just does not want another dog in the house.
We currently have 3 cats, and our oldest, Charlie, who is almost 16, was not happy when I fostered a few years ago. But it was a good way to warm him up. We had 6 kittens, and then we only adopted 1, so it was like, oh, this is better. But the reason we don't have a dog currently in our fur family is because of Charlie. We don't want to stress him out in his golden years. He does not deal with change well. He has anxiety. So we're like, you get to live happily. We'll get a dog when it's the right time. So it sounds like you are definitely in that mindset to give our pets whatever they need, even if it's just them being the only one.
What I will say about having a unicorn is it does help me as I'm educating people. It helps me kind of learn. Like my next book is going to be about introducing a new dog in the house.
Oh, that's great.
I think that it's really important to do that correctly, especially if you're someone who's passionate about rescue.
Absolutely. I worked for less than a year part-time in one of my local shelters doing dog adoption events. I would take the dogs out to the community events and help get them adopted. And I can't even count all of the times where a dog got adopted and 1 day later, 2 days later, they were back. My cat doesn't like it. It chewed this up. It jumped over the fence. It's like, people, it's an animal. Would you do well in a brand new environment without understanding why you're there in 1 day or not? people don't realize that putting them through that also makes it even harder to get them adopted later because you're traumatizing them. You're not helping them in any way by bringing them home for a day or two and then sending them back. So sounds like you really understand that, and I appreciate that. And I'm sure you doing a book around that, especially for kids, is so great because I think at this point we need to educate the kids and really get them, the next generation, to be the ones that help get us out of this overpopulation crisis we're in, right?
Well, and it's so funny you say that because when I adopted Layla, the first thing my shelter gave me was a document about the 3-3-3 rule.
Mhm.
And the 3-3-3 rule is something that I think the general public doesn't have enough knowledge in, but it is universally accepted in shelters and rescues, which is pretty rare in and of itself to have a lot of experts who all agree on one thing. I think it's worth talking a little bit about the 3-3-3 now because that's actually the topic
Absolutely.
of my next book.
Okay.
If you are not aware, the 3-3-3 rule is a set of well documented behaviors, oftentimes kind of concerning behaviors that dogs especially go through in the first 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months that they are in a shelter or when they have been adopted from a shelter.
Right.
So, like in the first 3 days, they are really decompressing. And so, a lot of people will be concerned when they see the dog is sleeping the whole time or they don't really eat those first couple of days. In my case,
Mhm.
Layla didn't poop for a couple of days. But these are things that happen to most dogs, if not all of them, at least some of them happen. And then
Right.
in that first 3 weeks, are starting to feel comfortable with you. And so if they have any quirks that might be annoying, like chewing on things or having a tendency to run away or something along those lines, that's when they start to show up. And so people will be inclined, if they aren't aware of the 3-3 rule, to return the dog.
Yep.
Because they say, oh, I can't have a dog that chews up my sofa. I can't have a dog who does this or is going to be like this. When really that's the time that you want to go to obedience training or something like that, because a lot of these behaviors are actually trainable. Layla is
Right.
considered a flight risk. She escaped her foster about a month before we got her, and she lived
Mm.
on her own for 18 days. Thank
Oh,
goodness we have an excellent KC Trappers network who had a bead on her. But knowing that she was a flight risk, we were able to train behaviors and train tendencies in her to help her know how to get home,
just right.
understand how to be on the leash. We don't leave her by herself outside because she loves her home, but she's a squirrel chaser and she'll chase that squirrel down. Nothing will
One of our dogs growing up was the same way. If the gardeners left the gate open and we didn't catch it and we let him out, it was like, go on adventure time. But it sounds like a lot of what you're saying is, and I saw this so much, was you have to you have to prepare yourself. You have to ask the questions so you can give the best environment to them so that you're setting them up for success.
Exactly. And the biggest thing I think is that people don't understand that it takes about 3 months. And they usually are not patient enough to give a dog that time. And frankly, you need to understand that, particularly in those first 3 weeks, you need to be spending a lot of time with your dog. You need to understand them because they cannot speak for themselves. Um,
Right. Even though we want everyone to adopt right now to save animals, we also want people to be prepared and understand you can't adopt a new animal and then just leave it by itself. Of course, it's going to chew something. First of all, you need to give it something to chew so it knows that's what I should be chewing. But you can't, and especially those first few days, decompression. I remember one time one of the dogs was brought back to the shelter, and it was because it wasn't playing enough with my kids. We wanted a dog that would play with my kids. You didn't give it 2 days. The dog is overwhelmed. It's exhausted. They don't sleep well in the shelter. They're constantly on edge. So I learned so much being there because all of what you're saying is so true is a lot of the issues we have in the world with pets and animals and overpopulation is because people aren't educated and they don't understand. And the 3-3 rule is great, but for some pets, it could take 6 months. For some pets, it could be a month, and they're like, "I'm home. This is great. I'm never leaving." So it's so important to educate people because they just don't understand.
for me, the reason I'm creating that book is it's going to have a sweet story because my books have sweet stories, and it's not going to be an educational book. It is meant to be a book that introduces some of these topics, then shelters and rescues can use them as discussions. Like, it should be a start to the discussion. Just like you said, we educate the children, and a picture book is for ages 4 to 7. And so the parent is going to be reading that with them, ideally. So it's also a little bit of a soft education for the parent, because I think that what it really comes down to is empathy. And I think that a lot of people, especially if you're new to adoption, it's hard to feel empathetic when a dog chews up something of yours. And because you might not understand why or understand the motivation.
Right.
Because
It's not a personal attack on you. It's the dog working out whatever it's going through. But I get really upset when Charlie decides to sit up and then throw up right where he is on the bed. And it's like, Charlie, can't you just move? He's 16. His bones hurt. He doesn't want to jump down and back up all the time. Yeah, there is definitely, I think, empathy in terms of understanding what they've gone through as animals. And sometimes we don't know all the facts, but also understanding they're animals just like us. You can't expect them to be perfect or respond or change overnight. And they need support, and training is so important, and consistency, right? Boundaries and all of those things are so important.
And a lot of times it was just like you were talking about with chewing, where if you see they're a chewer, you don't get mad about it. You find a chewing toy for them to occupy themselves with. They
Right.
need that stimulation, just like your kids need that stimulation.
Right.
You can't
Yeah,
expect
I just like we adjust to people's quirks and personalities. We need to give them what they need. I dog sat a lot after COVID, and one of my friends who I dog sat a lot for, she has a pug. He needs to always have something to chew on, to be playing with. He is either 100% active chewing, playing, or sound asleep snoring like a freight train. So as his auntie, I learned that I always had to make sure, because if he wasn't, he would go find something, a book, a magazine, the couch, the rug. So you had to redirect him. It didn't mean he was a bad dog. He just needed certain things to be happy and content.
Yeah, exactly.
Pugs are special creatures.
But you love them, like
Have them. So we've talked about this book you're going to write, all these things, and we kind of didn't start at the beginning with what made you decide to start writing children's books and to make them about pets and dogs?
I didn't start out writing children's books about dogs. My first job, I was a director of education for a symphony orchestra.
Oh, okay.
And one of the things that I started while I worked there was a storytime series. And I learned very, very quickly that classical music has a distinct lack of kid-friendly classical music stories that are recent. If I wanted those stories, I had to make them myself. I had loved creating stories as a child and kind of put it away when I was training to be a musician, and found it again, and didn't necessarily know how you published until I met an independent publisher who was doing a performance for us. And I said, well, how did you get connected with your publisher? And he said, well, I just published myself. I said, oh my gosh, you can do that? Yeah. And I do feel like COVID maybe normalized that a little bit more, but this was
Right.
about 10 years ago, and I just didn't even know that world existed. And so I spent a couple of years learning how to publish, and my first book was a classical music story. It was a musical twist on Goldilocks. It has a very, very small audience, but the audience that has it really loves it. But I didn't feel like I wanted to take my career in a new direction when I started writing full time. And this was around the same time that I met Layla, and just really started embracing rescue, animal advocacy. It was something that really was important to me, especially as I was hearing stories about overcrowding and, all of the terrible things that are happening right now with dogs just getting dumped because the shelters are full. I felt like I wanted to not only use my writing platform for engaging stories, but I also wanted to be able to advocate and fundraise. And so this story that I've written this time, which is, I guess, the origin story of the series that will be moving forward, was called The Odd Dog. And you always have a little bit of inspiration from your own personal stories. And there's definitely little Easter eggs in there that nod back to Layla, my dog.
Right.
But I didn't want to create a story about my dog. So we worked really hard to create a character. I knew we had hit on the right look for the character, when I heard repeatedly and still hear repeatedly, that reminds me of a dog I had when I was a kid. Really wanted this sentimental nature of this character to come through. We used watercolors so that it would have kind of a past look. It would harken back to a time. If your listeners ever see the book, I always say it is anti-AI. Like no AI could ever create this character.
Yes.
It could only come from my illustrator's mind because it's this quirky dog. And instead of real legs, it has stick legs.
I was looking at it before we got on to record. It's almost like Pigpen from Snoopy, where it kind of has action, but it's a part of the dog's fur or something. There's definitely yeah, you would not make. I put in things with AI, like, give me a calico. I'm like, that's a very perfect looking calico. Not all calicos look like that. So I totally get what you're saying. I love that.
And we definitely use Snoopy and Charlie Brown as kind of an inspiration. Like we have a typewriter font to kind of harken back to Snoopy's typewriter. Even when the start is clean, it has dirt spots all over it. And it's just part of the charm.
Right.
When you adopt a rescue dog, especially a mutt, it doesn't matter how much you groom them. They're there to be loved, not to be a show dog.
Right.
You want to capture that odd dog.
People are very stuck on looks when it comes to dogs. Like people would all the time when I did adoption events, well, what kind of dog is it? I don't know. We don't do genetic testing. And if it's picked up on the street or found abandoned, we have no idea. And we've also learned with genetic testing, sometimes dogs are not at all what we assume they are. Everyone should embrace the mutt because, I mean, we're all mutts. We all come from 10 different places. And yes, breeds often have tendencies for certain behaviors, but that doesn't mean every dog of that breed is going to be exactly the same.
Yeah. I had a friend who just adopted and she had shown me for show dogs. She was talking about this new dog who is just cute as a button. His name is Timber. She said, it drives me crazy that he just chewed up my couch. I would never give him up. He is such a sweet, loving dog. But the reason people will go with specific breeds is because you can pretty much predict the behavior of that breed. But for me, I kind of love the wild card. I feel like Layla is a unique, one-of-a-kind dog. And I think every mutt is a one-of-a-kind dog. They completely overcome any stereotypes you could ever have of them. And it just makes them unique individuals. And again, it's all about getting to know your dog and taking that time. And I think that once you do that, even if a dog takes longer to warm up to you, you almost care about them more. It probably took Layla a year to really, really warm up to my husband. And now, I mean, she's his sleeping buddy. Every blanket he ever lays on, she has to lay on herself. She watches for him all day. And he had to earn that. And I think he cares about it more because he had to earn that a bit.
I saw a video, I think it was on Instagram recently, and it was a woman and her cat basically chronicling how he was trying to win over this cat. Like, I'm going to get you to, and then you get to the point where the cat is on him and they're sleeping and they're best buds. It's always the ones you got to work hard for. And I will say, Charlie, who I mentioned earlier, we found him abandoned alone at probably around 2 weeks old in my parents' backyard. We think maybe a feral cat had kittens and was moving them and he got in a spot she couldn't get him out. At the time, my husband was not working. He had been laid off. And I was still in school for my doctorate, and we already had 2 cats in an apartment. We were not supposed to have any cats. So when I brought Charlie home, because my parents had no idea what to do with a tiny kitten, he literally almost divorced me. He was so mad at me, like, we can't do this. Cut to a few weeks, months later, where I went to school for my doctorate was a couple hours away, and so I'd go for the weekend and come home. Him and Charlie, best buds, follows him around like a duckling, still does. And I always like to say to Charlie, I'm the one that saved you. But that also shows you with animals, it can take time. Some need time to feel safe. They need time to feel like you're not going to abandon them like others have. It sounds like your husband really was devoted to making Layla realize that he was a safe person, that he would take care of her.
Oh, definitely. And now one of the things they love to do together is explore trails and take nice long walks. And it's good for both of them. And let them have a little bit of I work from home, so it gives me a little bit of time to do my work without my
Right.
loving dog who wants a walk every couple of hours.
I think that's the other thing I've really learned through working and volunteering and rescue and shelters, but also as someone who now works from home too, that I think, I'll be at the desk and realize it's been 3 or 4 hours and I haven't moved. Thank God for our pets. They keep us sane, but they also, especially dogs, maybe push you to do a little exercise, to go outside. My cats all love to be outside. We have a very small yard, but on the weekends when my husband is home and he's out gardening or doing something, they all get to go out and explore and just sit in the sun and, eat grass and then throw it up, whatever they want to do,
I love
right?
it. Yeah.
And so it is important for us to give them that time because it's so important to pets to have the outside and nature, but it's also important for us to keep them safe, and that's why we never let any of them out unless we're out there with them. Our calico pumpkin is a princess and thinks she runs this house. She kind of does. But she loves to go outside. She thinks she's a tiger in the jungle, and she rolls around and gets as dirty as possible. And I'm just thinking, why are you doing this? But she loves it. Like, she thrives. We know we want to give our pets what they need, but sometimes we have to figure out what that is. Not every animal is going to be the same.
Exactly.
Odd Dog is your version of Layla. There's some Layla characteristics, and I've had a couple children's books authors on, and they'd always talk about how even if they didn't focus on making that dog or cat or animal about the one they have, it always gets a little of the personality or the quirks dropped in. So what part of Layla did you really let shine in that book?
I would say that this book was really my thought of what if. Knowing that she had been out on her own. When we first met her, she would do these really funny things. Like the first night she was wired, that she jumped over the back of my husband's chair. There's a little spot in the book where the dog is just about to jump off of the back of the chair. She's so excited to get to squirrels that she will actually climb the tree. She can get up like 5 or 6 feet. I always kind of wondered, like, how did she learn that? So I just started imagining, like, okay, what if a dog who was out in the wild learned things from other animals? Like,
Oh,
what if they learned how to fly from the birds? What if they learned how to climb from the squirrels? And then the way we shaped the story was she learned these things, but her parents have no way of knowing that she learned these things. But then when she gets into the house, she does those same things. And mom is afraid when I practice my flying. Dad was worried for my safety when I tried to swim, and climbing in the house is never a good idea. And we really thought about it, and we went, no, you know what? I don't want it to ever be a question that this dog isn't where they're supposed to be.
right.
And one of the ways this story kind of zigs versus a pretty typical story formula for a picture book is that a lot of times the main character will have rules of three. They'll have like three obstacles to try to pass. And then they solve those obstacles, those three obstacles. But one of the things that is maybe not obvious in the book is that Odd doesn't learn a thing. Odd does have quirks, and then there's problems with the quirks. But it's not Odd who learns something. It's his mom and dad look at him and say, okay, let's find ways to channel that energy. And so in this case, they find a park where Odd is able to do all these things in a way that is constructive.
So it's not about changing the animal, it's about the home and the parents adjusting for the animal's personality and quirks.
It's that classic redirect, like you find a toy instead of letting them chew.
Yeah, redirection. We all need it for different things. I need it from online shopping. Don't chew on that, chew on this. Don't dig there, dig here, whatever it may be.
And as a dog mom, I get way too much joy finding the newest toy that I think that Layla's going to love. I'm still going to keep trying because it's fun to me too.
I see that even with my cats. Like, I've tried so many different enrichment toys to keep Pumpkin's little brain active because she loves being outside, but really can't be during the week. Very few things are even of interest to her. She'd much rather be real insects than things like that.
Yes.
Cats and dogs need you to find that thing. A lot of dogs, it's the tennis ball. You find what works for them. Sometimes the size, you got to find the right ball size. You don't want them to swallow it, but they have to be able to grab it and carry it with them, whatever it may be.
And like Layla doesn't like regular tennis balls, but boy, oh boy, she loves the squeaky ones. And she loves
Of
the squeaky
course.
ones when we're watching TV. Like she adores completely taking over the entire room because she has actually figured out how to direct the squeaky part so it's outside of her mouth so it is the maximum noise she can possibly make with this thing. I know she does it on purpose, even if she can never
That's
tell.
it. I love our little pet quirks are what make them so special, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't even realize it till they're not around anymore. We realize, oh, I missed that sound. It used to annoy me, but I miss it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny how all our pets, excuse me, I'm being very doggist today. Like
It's okay.
you're a dog lover. You know, my mom was really the caregiver for Dixie, our childhood dog, in her later years. When she passed, she took it really, really hard, but then it inspired her to adopt a senior dog. And that dog also makes a little appearance as an extra in the book. Her name was Wink. And she adopted her when she was 13. This dog had been sent to the shelter at 15 years old. And my mom said she's going to die in the shelter if someone doesn't take care of her. And that dog lived another 3 years. Again, my mom took that really hard, but it inspired her to adopt another senior dog who really needed her. And for her at 71, she wouldn't consider adopting a puppy, but she's happy to adopt seniors and give them the best life they can for a couple of years.
I love that. Please tell your mom thank you. Cause I just, people who adopt senior dogs are so amazing, such heroes. And there are rescues all over that are specifically for senior dogs because seniors end up in the shelter. There are ones that end up there because their family drops them off for a reason. But a lot of times it's because their owner has passed away or has been put in the hospital. I saw that several times in the shelter, and it was heartbreaking because they don't understand where's their person. I'm in this scary place. They've lived 5, 10, 15 years in someone's home, and
Yeah.
now they're in this place. And gosh, it's heartbreaking. But yeah, it takes a really special person to do that. That's amazing that's how she kind of gives back. But it also makes sense. We talked about getting my mom a dog, but she just was like, I can't walk long distances. There are things like that allow us to really, you want to make sure you're getting the dog that's right for you, your lifestyle, your home, whatever it may be, because that does make a big difference.
And I feel like someone who maybe lived with purebreds their whole life might be more interested in their later years in getting a senior dog because they are so easy they have medical issues, yes, but in a
Right.
lot of ways, they're a lot easier to take care of. They sleep like they 17 hours a day. You can go out and they might not even realize you're gone.
Right. Oh, yeah. Charlie, sometimes he would have no idea if we were here because he sleeps sometimes 5 hours, there's some days I come into my office and I go in the bedroom in the afternoon and he's like in the exact same spot. I mean, yes, it's frustrating because he does throw up a lot and he's diabetic, so we have to give him shots, but we would never not do that. So it's very special if someone can adopt an older dog and a senior dog who really just needs a space to enjoy their last years.
Well, after seeing that with her, it's definitely something that I want to do as I get older.
I love that.
Yeah.
That we try to save as many as we can, even if it's one at a time.
Yeah.
So you mentioned to me a animal rescue organization in your area in Kansas City, Wayside Waifs. Can you talk a little bit about them?
Absolutely. So Wayside Waifs has been a Kansas City institution for more than 80 years. They are just a wonderful facility. They do tons for the community. They do monthly shot clinics where people can get all of their vaccines for around $15. They even have a pet memorial center. They have a hospital included in there. And one of the things that I really love about them is they're deeply embedded in the community. They have a fantastic human education department who has an anti-bullying initiative and a curriculum that is actually used nationally. Several shelters have used their curriculums. And I would say that they are just so caring and really try to find every possible way they can to serve their community, to be able to make pet ownership real and accessible. And so I honestly would say that if You want to see an organization that's doing it right. Like if you've ever thought about starting your own shelter or rescue, it's worth making a pilgrimage because they have taken every possible measure to make an environment that is less stressful for the animals, that makes pet ownership more easy to do, and also makes, in a lot of ways, affordable. If someone's a little afraid they can't afford to have an animal, they have a pet pantry, they have the monthly vaccination clinic, they have a vet in house. Like they are just doing all of the right things.
It sounds like an amazing organization.
Kansas City is lucky to have a couple fantastic organizations because we have the highest per capita pet industries in the world. Greenies is based in Kansas City. Hills is like there are several large
companies,
international pet companies that are based here. And so there's a ton of community support for these organizations as well. And I think they are really doing what they need to try to
make a difference.
Ownership, really.
Right.
And it definitely shows in just their care and empathy in the community.
And it's so important. People don't realize how fundamental community support is for any nonprofit, let alone pet ones that are struggling. I know so many rescues and shelters that are just struggling right now. Not all of us are in a position to adopt or foster, but there are ways you can give back. Your time is a great donation. Every rescue organization needs that. Your sharing on social, whatever it could be. But also, you know, what you mentioned with Wayside Waifs is the education piece. And I've seen a lot of organizations do that, especially going into schools and teaching, utilizing the animals in that, whether it's dogs or cats or whatever. And like we talked about earlier, that's really key because not only are we educating the kids to grow up differently, the kids take that information home and share it with their parents and their family. And that's really, I think, long term, how there's going to be change in terms of pet ownership, the overpopulation crisis, and all of those things. So I love that. And I say, everyone, go follow Wayside Waifs on social, wherever you hang out, and follow them, support them, share them. You know, that's what I try to do with this podcast is there are so many organizations, nonprofits, rescue shelters that just need a little more visibility. I didn't even know all the organizations in my own community, ones that do spay and neuter clinics, ones that do vaccine clinics, food pantries, pet pantries. All of those, they may be in your community if you're listening to this. Find them and help support them however you can.
And I would absolutely agree with one of the best things that you can do is sharing. Like if you see a dog or cat whose story inspires you, what we hate to see is when an animal gets rehomed because they think they can't afford them. And there are always options. There is always something you can do. You do not have to give up your family pet because you're struggling financially. Sharing on social media makes it a very safe space to communicate that information because you never know who needs it at that time.
Yeah, I try to go onto my pet podcast Instagram at least once a day to kind of go through and see what's happening. I do share a wide variety, especially because we have two shelters where I live. One is a county and one is a city. Unfortunately, they both have 30 to 40% euthanasia rates because they are governed by county, state, city laws. They can only have so many dogs at once, which means some dogs have to go one way or another. It's heartbreaking. But if you share posts about the dogs that don't have a lot of time, you never know. We've seen dogs from my local community get adopted hours away in Southern California, as well as out of state. People will travel if they feel a connection to an animal. So you don't know what the power is by liking, sharing, supporting, whatever it is. Those little things do make a big difference. And I've seen it happen in my own community. And also find people who are volunteers. People who volunteer regularly, and if they have social media, they're often posting things that need a boost. And so I follow a lot of the amazing rockstar volunteers at my local shelter, and I just post and repost and comment because I know the algorithm pushes it. Or you get on a newsletter email list and share it with friends. There's a lot of different ways that you can share the information and help those organizations and the animals.
One of the things that I'm doing with my Odd Dog book is I am working with shelters and rescues to organize book signing fundraisers. If they are a shelter and they want people to come to their facility, we'll do one at their facility. But a lot of times, especially with foster-based rescues, we will find a mutually agreed upon location, like a coffee shop, where I'll do a book signing fundraiser and I donate $5 from every book. And it will usually raise between $200 to $250 for the shelter rescue. And so if there's anyone who would be interested in working with me to do that, I am planning to make that a national port. I am happy to come out for a couple days and do like a mini book tour where I'll go, I can always find things to do like author visits or things like that and help to raise. My hope is eventually to get to where we're raising $500 to $1,000 every single time. And I think we can absolutely do that together. So if anyone is interested in that or wants to get more information or understand how I do that, in case they might want to do it themselves, they can email me at hello@storiesbyleah.com.
Perfect. And I will put that email in the show notes as well as your website. So I'm sure they can connect with you via the website. Little events like that make a huge difference. People don't realize what $200 can do for a foster-based rescue. That's how much cat food or dog food or vaccines or medicine, flea meds, whatever it may be. So that's really great. And I applaud you for utilizing your book and your stories to help others. And we will definitely put that out there into the world. So if anyone is interested, definitely connect with Leah about that. Sounds like a great opportunity, but also something fun for you to travel and meet people who run rescues and organizations.
I would be lying if I wasn't eyeballing my neighbor's RV and thinking, oh man, I can totally take Layla on the road. Like that's probably going to become a thing eventually. My
I
dog
love
will.
that.
But yes, I come from a nonprofit background and I just really want to help. And I come on podcasts like this because I want to get in front of new people who might share my passion and share my vision and see if we can find ways to collaborate and help make a difference together.
And it's exactly why I keep this podcast going. There may be a connection, or I always say if one dog gets adopted or one thing gets done because of it, then it's worth it for me to do it. So everyone listening, you can go to the show notes, connect with Leah, go to storiesbyleah.com, follow her on social media, buy her book, The Odd Dog, and I'm sure there will be new books to come, and I can't wait to hear about those. And check out Wayside Waifs near Kansas City. Support them as well as your own local organizations. And Leah, I'm so glad that we connected. It was so great to have you here on the podcast and to hear the story behind you creating these children's books. I really love it. And I'm so glad we connected. And I just really thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Julie. The feeling is more than mutual, and I hope I'm able to come on again.
Yeah.
Julie, I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Story of My Pet podcast. I appreciate you listening and supporting the podcast. And if you haven't already, wherever you are listening to this episode, make sure you hit follow or subscribe and leave us a rating or review. All of that helps the podcast grow and get to even more listeners and help us educate and advocate for animals in need around the world. If you haven't done so already, make sure to check out our new YouTube channel, Story of My Pet Podcast. Again, hit the subscribe button. Give us some likes and comments on our videos, and that will help the podcast grow on YouTube. Thank you so much for being here, and much love to you and your pets.